We're making really good progress moving down our home page and adding our responsive styles. Hopefully you're starting to pick up on all the patterns and tricks that we'll use to make sure that everything adjusts correctly, but I promise as we keep moving on through the course, it'll really all become second nature as we get practice doing this on every page. Now, keep in mind that I've already gone through and figured out these styles myself, so that's how I know the exact perfect paddings, margins, and font sizes, and heights and widths that we need to change it to. But in your own applications, you'll just go through in the same way that we're resizing the screen until things start to break, and then you identify what styles are causing those breaks, and then start adjusting them up or down until you get it right. But I don't want to waste your time, of course, going through and figuring it out on the fly here, so I just know the values that we need to use to make it look correct. So let's keep on going and head on over to the browser to work on our featured products block. Alright, so here is our featured products block. If we go ahead and start to shrink this down and resize it, it actually handles perfectly for most of the screen sizes. It still looks great here. Everything's aligning correctly. And let's see, we're still at our large breakpoint. So let's head down till we get to the medium breakpoint. Looks like we just did. And everything is still working really nicely. So let's go ahead and just like we started to put this in a vertical layout instead of the horizontal layout, once we reach our medium breakpoint, because that's going to look better on mobile screens, let's go ahead and get rid of our staggered layout here. And for our smaller screens, we're just going to center them all up. So let's go ahead and in the code editor, we'll now open up our featured products.js. And just like before, let's go ahead and import our use media query from material-ui/core/use media query. Now we can come down and where we are setting the alignment of our different items in very front of this, so in front of all of our logic, let's first check if matches medium. So if we're at our medium breakpoint, and we're gonna have to go create that, but if we're at our medium breakpoint, let's go ahead and just center it up right away. And otherwise, if we're not at the medium breakpoint, then we can follow the logic that we had set before. So that means we need to come up and create our constant of matches MD equal to the use media query called receiving our theme, and then we'll check the theme.breakpoints.down for medium. So let's go ahead, save that, and flip on over. And you see that now our larger breakpoints, we still have the staggered, but at our medium breakpoint, now everything is nicely centered up. Now, instead of having everything slide over to the right, I think we're going to want to actually have it slide down. I think that'll look a little bit better because on smaller screens, for the very small screens, we're not going to have space on the sides for it to expand. So once we set up this centered layout, let's go ahead and we'll actually have it slide out the bottom now. So we'll go ahead and have to change that. But first, since we're on a smaller screen, let's go ahead and shrink these down a little bit. So we'll go ahead and find our frame class here. Let's go ahead and add our theme.breakpoints.down for medium. And here we'll give it a height of 19.8 rem and a width of 20 rem. So we have that just smaller so that our borders render correctly. And then of course, since we're changing the frame size, we're also going to need to change the size of the image itself, which is our featured class. So we'll again give it the theme.breakpoints.down for medium and go ahead and we'll just give it a height of 15 rem and a width of 15 rem as well. So if we go ahead and save that and flip on over, we see that now we've got a bit smaller frames and images, but now our slide is too big, so it's popping out from behind. So let's go ahead and find our slide class, and we'll give this the theme.breakpoints.down for medium. And we'll change the height and width here to a height of 15.2 rem and a width of 19.5. We can go ahead and save that. And now we see our slides are nice and hidden back behind our frames. We can still see it though, but the spacing is now going to be different because we are sliding it over based on the previous widths, and now that's smaller, so it's sliding out too far. But that's okay because we're going to slide it down anyways. Now, one thing that's going on here is that we have all this extra space up at the top and all this extra space here at the bottom. But now that we're in this column layout, I'd like them to use all that available space. All right, so if we scroll on down and find our background container, we're previously setting a justify of center, but now that we're in a direction of column, that's centering them up vertically. So let's go ahead and we'll change this to a matches MD. And if we're at the medium breakpoint or below, let's go ahead and use a space between. Otherwise, we'll still center it up as before. So if we go ahead and save that, it's going to now distribute the space in between all of these items and take up the space of the container. So now this almost gives us enough space to have our slide come out from underneath it, but that's still going to end up being too close actually. So I think we should just go ahead and make this entire container a bit larger, and that'll give us more space in between each of these for our slide to come down. Because actually, if I go ahead and measure this, I can draw a little box here and it tells me the width and the height. So that's about 244 pixels, and the gaps in between them is just 179. So that's not enough space for the slide to come out from underneath. So if we just go ahead and make the entire background container larger, that'll give us more space in between them. So I'll go up and we can find our background class here. It's our first one. And where we're previously setting a height of 180 rem, let's set our theme.breakpoints.down for medium, and we'll now use a height of 220 rem. So if I go ahead and save that, flip back on over, you see that now we've got a nice larger screen size here, or background size, that will be nice for scrolling on mobile devices, and we've got a much larger gap that will allow the slide to come out from underneath. So now for us to actually have the slide come out from below instead of to the side, just as before where we have our slide left and slide right classes, let's copy that and we'll now create a slide down class, and we'll go ahead and we'll be moving 0 pixels in the vertical, or in the horizontal direction rather, the x-axis, and for the y-axis we'll go ahead and move 17 rem down. And so that'll actually just be a positive 17. Then we need to go down to where we implemented this using our classes here with the CLSX to dynamically add our class. And first we'll want to go ahead and make sure that these are not applied. So we'll go ahead, because remember, we'll have the flex end and the flex start, or the alignment would be center rather, and so it would end up sliding right as it is currently. So let's make sure we go ahead and in front of our logic, let's check not matches MD. So, and then not matches MD and all of this. So if we are at the medium breakpoint, it is going to cause this to fail, and neither of the slide left or slide right, if we go ahead and add not matches MD and all of that, then that'll go ahead and neither of those will be applied. So then we can come after it, and now we can add the classes.slide down, and we want this to be applied if we are at matches MD, and just like before, if the expanded index in our piece of state is the index of the slide we're currently mapping over. So let's go ahead and save that, flip back on over. Now if I go ahead and click on our slide, check that out. We now nicely have our slide coming out from the bottom of our product. So I think that looks pretty sweet. And if we go ahead and we shrink this all the way down to our smallest breakpoint, we'll see that it still looks really nice and the slide still functions perfectly with plenty of room to spare.